Turning overseas, there are fears the US government could be headed towards a shutdown, as we've been reporting. It comes after the US President-elect Donald Trump opposed and criticised a funding bill by the House Speaker Mike Johnson. For more, joining us now is the Chief Executive at the Perth USAsia Centre, Professor Gordon Flake. Gordon, good to see you. Thanks for your time. Donald Trump isn't in the Oval Office just yet, but he's certainly throwing his weight around and having a real impact.
It's not just President-elect Donald Trump. It's also his unelected advisors. So Elon Musk and his Department of Government Efficiency have come out with almost minute-by-minute tweets opposing that, to which Donald Trump has responded. This is an indication of how kind of fundamentally broken the system is in the United States, not just this year, but for decades now. It has literally been decades since Congress has passed the annual authorization appropriation bills to keep the government running. So every year they roll it into a big omnibus spending bill, and that doesn't pass. And so they do these continuing resolutions. And so once again, we're facing what's called the cliff. So if by Friday they don't pass a bill to get the government funded, you're going to have an awful lot of government employees, over 3 million of them, facing Christmas without a paycheck. So it is an indication of how volatile things are going to be in the coming weeks and months.
Yeah, it'll be fascinating to see how that plays out. We have seen Donald Trump's influence already being seen in foreign policy issues as well. His tough rhetoric on the Middle East being credited for starting to sway Hamas to look at signing a ceasefire deal and release hostages. As we head into 2025, I'm keen to get from you what you're really on the lookout for in terms of changes to global world order, foreign policy shifts from the US, which of course then really flows on in terms of consequences for the rest of us.
So we're used to the international community responding to US election results. You just can go back to the election of Ronald Reagan when it came to the Iran hostage deal. Clearly, the very vocal and strong support of President-elect Trump for Israel has had impacts in Syria. It's had impacts with Hezbollah. I'm not entirely sure yet whether it'll have an impact with Hamas. I wouldn't consider myself that much of an expert on the Middle East, but you can put that in the context of how countries are responding to the Trump 2.0 era. I just didn't anticipate that the primary target of the president would be our next door neighbor, or the U.S. next door neighbor of Canada or Mexico. And so whether it's Australia, whether it's Japan, Korea, or in this case, Hamas, everybody is looking to Washington to figure out what this re-election means and how it's going to be played out of Washington, D.C.
You mentioned Korea. I know you've recently returned from there. That country, of course, seeing its own big political shake-up in recent weeks. In light of that and the transition we've seen in the US, what are your reflections on, more broadly, the state of democracy as we wrap up the year?
Oh, look, it's been a rough time for democracies, and it's been a particular rough time for incumbents. And so whether you're on the conservative side of the spectrum or the progressive side of the spectrum, we're facing a global population that is quite upset, whether it's the inflation itself, whether it is reaction to the COVID period, whether it is information, misinformation, disinformation, one way or the other. You've seen incumbent governments globally lose power or lose government altogether. In the case of Korea, it was a bit more of an own goal. I come back from a week in Korea encouraged by the commitment of the Korean citizenry to democracy. So to have a declaration of martial law overturned in a matter of hours and that process proceed quite smoothly is quite different than what we've seen in the United States, my homeland, and many other places. It's important to remember that these trends don't stop at the end of the year. Looking ahead to 2025, there are a number of other democracies that have elections, including our own and Canada, et cetera. And as your own reporting just minutes ago has showed, those are kind of hot on the topic. So the ability of what we would call the free world or the democratic world to coalesce during a time of extreme volatility is going to be very challenging.
Gordon Flake, we have plenty more, by the sounds of it, to discuss next year on air. Thank you for all your contributions with us this year. I appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thank you.